Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and I recently came across a fascinating debate between Douglas Murray and the far-left Swiss activist Flavia Kleiner. And let's just say it didn't end very well for Kleiner. They were debating on a Dutch TV program, and what you're about to see is a masterclass on how to handle a rude, woke leftist like a pro.
Europe learned the hard way, not once, but twice. Only fools and Douglas Murray would give up these lessons learned. Europe stands for each and every one of us because it has to. Every populist movement has at its center the goal of destroying these institutions. Even though they are often democratically elected, which shows the liberal nature of the democratic system, once in power, they have only one goal: to deconstruct liberal institutions. Right-wing populists like Douglas Murray attack these institutions because they want arbitrariness, they want chaos, they want the rule of law not to be the strongest but to be the fittest who survives. Because they are part of that small elite, the privileged few. As soon as they get the power, they expose their fundamental illiberal views. They function like a Trojan horse or an evil uncle who arrives with a bouquet of flowers and leaves with the only ways you've had. But at the very moment, we get involved in a discussion exclusively about migration, nation state, European identity. We are already on the turf of the right-wing populists. I think we should decide on what we want to focus on, where we think the real problems lie. The right-wing populist arguments are outdated and, frankly speaking, very boring. They do nothing for actually solving problems, such as challenges of climate change. They're not only distracting us, they're wasting our time, and they don't even show up in person.
Ouch. Yeah. Well, what she's getting at there is that Douglas Murray is debating remotely by way of Zoom or Skype. So you heard several jabs in that presentation. Only fools and Douglas Murray would give up these lessons Europe has learned. She pushed the old populism is autocratic meme. There's a ubiquitous charge that liberals make that populists are anti-democratic. It's blatantly absurd. One of the most wide-ranging studies on populist movements by Matthew Goodwin concluded that populists actually want more democracy, not less. They want more referendums. They want more elections, more politicians spending more time listening to and representing their values, interests, and concerns. And so that, of course, begs the question, who are the real autocrats here? Just as a reminder, just days before Italy's national election, officials from the EU actually warned Italy on who they're voting for. Listen to what Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, had to say about the upcoming Italian elections.
We'll see if things go in a difficult direction. I've spoken about Hungary and Poland. We have tools if things go in the right direction. And people, as a body that is always, where always governments have to be accountable to, play an important role.
So there you go. You heard it for yourself. We have tools. They have retributive tools that they can use against Italy, akin to what they've been using against the populists in Hungary and Poland. So you better vote the right way or else. That's the definition of democracy, according to the bullies in Brussels, that this swift leftist activist is such a big fan of. So you got some ad hominem in there. You have some straw men in there where she's attacking an autocracy that doesn't exist on the right but is actually flourishing on the left, as we shall soon see. Here's Douglas Murray's response.
Flavia, Douglas, you have listened to Flavia. I'm curious in the next, let's say, 30 minutes, whether we as an audience will understand better how the two of you come to such different conclusions on the current state of affairs in Europe. Is there anything, for starters, in Flavia's speech that you would agree with?
There wasn't very much in it. What I mainly got was an I want list, followed by a set of claims and rather presumptuous insults. it was hard to find any meat there at all on the bone. That might be because it's rather hard to find any work that Flavia has done other than a tiny campaign in a tiny country. By contrast, of course, it's obviously very much the case that she's read and absorbed everything I've written, which is why she's so happy to be so insulting when she meets me almost in person. So no, there wasn't very much to pick up on other than the rather ill-spoken, ill-lettered and rude attempts to attack me. And I'm sorry about that because I think that it demonstrates her own personal failing as much as it does a failing of the cause that she would like to lead before she got tired and decided to get out. And that is to say this: it's a shame that people like her refuse to engage on any of the important terrain. So much of my time in recent years has been spent engaging with serious actors with serious reputations, not people like Flavia, people who have spent their life working on these issues and have made very successful political careers, for instance, from doing so. I've always noticed, wish to engage on the serious terrain. When I speak with leading politicians across Europe, who I happen to disagree with, I find that the most important and impressive ones do not get up and read bucket lists of what they'd like to do and then insult people. I find that they try to, for instance, understand what other people are thinking, and particularly try to understand what the public might be thinking. For instance, they might try to work out whether the public is sometimes trying to tell them something, and whether the public who they disagree with might not in fact be onto something on occasion. After all, it's very easy to draw rather comfortable lines around yourself and your own ideology, such as it is, and declare that everyone on the other side of it is, for instance, an evil populist or a fool. That's right, a fool. What an amazing way to speak about somebody else to their virtual face. And what an extraordinary way to speak about majority population votes in our continent. I see very little likelihood of anyone like Flavia, for as long as she remains in the public eye, being able to achieve anything much, because she keeps dismissing the public, and the public tend not to like that.
Wow. How do you spell mic drop? My. Note to self: do not call Doug Murray a fool in public. Yeah, I mean, that was about as harsh of a smackdown as you can get, and substantive as well. Murray alluded to his writings, and he also alluded to the fact that this woke activist obviously hasn't bothered to read his writings. He alluded to his writings that have identified a massive gap between the people and the political class in Europe. So, for example, there was a British study by the Chatham House that found that nearly 80% of the British political class thought immigration was always good. But only 20% of the British public felt that way. This is a massive gap between the people and the political class, and this woke Swiss activist is only contributing to the ever-widening of that gap. And as Douglas Murray pointed out, she does so by sticking her finger in her ears, refusing to hear any dissent, any criticism to the establishment narrative. And instead, she substitutes listening and dialogue with insults and pejoratives such as you fool or you autocrat or anti-democratic, when all such labels could demonstrably be applied to the one throwing them out. Gang, I know with all the chaos around us, bank closings, riots, economic collapses, indictments, it's easy to feel discouraged, confused, and defeated. But in all reality, as I show you each and every day, it's all nothing more than the last grasp of a dying liberal order trying to desperately hold on as long as they can. All my research is pointing to the fact that the whole liberal world is falling apart, and it's more possible than ever to escape the liberal world order. But now I have a question for you. What do you want to see in terms of resources and strategies for that escape? You see, over the last month, I've been researching to help you escape this woke insanity with your family and with your sanity intact. So what I'm doing is I'm compiling all my research into a step-by-step guidebook to help you feel encouraged and weather this storm. But first, I want to hear from you about what you'd like to see addressed in this resource. So all you have to do is comment below or send me an email directly at steve@turleytalks.com to let me know your thoughts. Together, as courageous patriots, we're rising up and saying no to the liberal world order once and for all. I can't wait to share with you this resource, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
All right, let's see if we can get somewhere with the two of you. Flavia has argued, I would say, as I listened to her, that the best starting point for a European identity would be the liberal institutions. Douglas, what would be your starting point for a European identity?
Well, you have to start at a much more fundamental and deeper level than that.
Does it get any more fundamental and deep, I wonder?
Yes, of course. I think it gets a lot deeper. Before you get institutions, you have to have the ideas and the philosophy that produce such institutions. Institutions are not just land like food parcels in countries.
I agree.
Yeah, so they come from somewhere. So clearly there is a deeper level, despite your attempt just now to pretend there isn't. Clearly there is, so we could agree on that. I think to some extent Flavia's ignorance of my thought is betrayed by the fact she seems to think I'm, among other things, some weird right-wing populist nationalist. Again, she's clearly engaged with none of my work. But one thing I've repeatedly said is that there is clearly such a thing as a European identity because you know it so clearly when you're not in Europe. I've spent a lot of my life traveling all around the world, and as I write in one recent book, there's nothing that makes you feel so close to Europe or so clear about what it means than, for instance, if you're standing in China, as I've done many times. There you see that there are specific philosophical and cultural inheritances that have made Europe what it is, including the liberalism which Flavia abuses or throws around like one of her confetti words, and I think doesn't quite understand.
And can I just clarify that I came
Last
here
point,
invited?
Flavia, and then we go to the audience.
I was invited here for a debate, and as much as I know about debates is that each of the debaters prepares a speech. I did it, you didn't. I was expecting your view to be presented this way, so I prepared myself this way. So I'm still hoping I can hear more.
If this is, by the way, to be the last round, I would just mention something very quickly. Flavia said that I hadn't prepared a speech. I do indeed have a speech here. I haven't been called upon to use it tonight, but my notes sit in front of me. I don't quite know, yet again, why that attack should be made. And I would just add one other thing, which is that it is my experience that I turn up to events and broadcast in when quarantining rules do not allow me to turn up to events, in a spirit of genuine openness to ideas. It's one of the great founding liberal ideas that we engage with each other. And I would just make this one point. When Flavia stood up and described me as stupid or a fool, she said, and then talked about arguments I make as boring, elitist, I've rather lost count of the number of insults she did. That is to not engage in that fundamental liberal spirit of debate. And so I'm very sorry myself that her decision to open this evening by being rude should have meant that some certain curtness might have been needed in reply. But I would hope on other occasions that she would join me in the spirit of genuine liberal thinking.
Okay, that point has been made. Thank you, Douglas.
Again, gang, that was brilliant. Here you have someone who claims to represent liberal Europe, and she turns out to be the one who is totally illiberal. In her dismissive disdain for very real and genuine concerns about immigration, in her refusal to discuss and dialogue and debate the issues at hand, she demonstrates herself to be the real anti-liberal. That's called game, set, match. Douglas Murray. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on woke CNN getting absolutely humiliated as they whine about the latest racist absurdity. It's going to make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.